Yeah, no, I just speak.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I've done a few times, tumble down.
Good afternoon, everybody. You're making one right there. You give us a microphone. Good afternoon, everyone. Wonderful to have a full house here today, both committee members and members of the public. I know some of the members of the public who are here are nominees for our subject matter or community expert roles on this committee. So I thank everyone for making the time to. Okay, let me ask that we begin. Let me ask that we begin with introductions, and I always forget to introduce myself. I'm Carrie Bridges, and I'm serving as the chair of the Opioid Settlement Advisory Committee. And I'll ask our committee members to go around and introduce themselves, including our youth committee. And I'll pass the mic around for the folks on the.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rich LeClaire. I'm the director of BHDDH.
Everyone, I'm Brendan Marshall. I'm an expert advisor and a professor at the Brown University.
Good afternoon, everyone. Philip Chan, Rhode Island Department of Health.
Good afternoon, Joe Pratt, Newport Boys and Girls Club.
Good afternoon, Deputy Speaker Hall, Representative.
I'm Justin Burke. I'm an addiction medical physician.
Good afternoon, Ernesto Figueroa from the Southern Convention Treaty Center.
Good afternoon, I'm Julie Hamill. I am the State Court Administrator and the designee of the Chief Justice.
Judge Favor,
Good afternoon, everyone. Matthew Moynihan, Chief of Police in South Kingstown, and represent Washington.
No one has met you yet, so actually, you would not remember the team. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mary Alma. I'm the new contract manager for the Sacramento. Nice to meet you. I think I've seen a few faces on Zoom meetings, but just good to officially see you guys. Thank you.
Welcome, Mariam.
We're very excited to have you. Thank you. Okay, as per usual, we do have a full agenda this afternoon. We are going to talk first about sustainability because we're thankful that Secretary Charis will hopefully be popping in any moment now. And we want the Secretary to be here as we begin to discuss, and I say begin because it's not going to begin and end today, begin to discuss sustainability of the USAC investments and funding. Then, as committee members know, and the folks in the room know, we have 2 seats that are coming to the end of their term. One subject matter expert, one community expert. So the committee will be voting on filling those 2 seats at this meeting so that they can start their service at our next meeting. We have a number of updates to go through from the Governor's Overdose Task Force, from updates around purchasing, also responding to a long desired, long overdue set of tools to assist folks with purchasing. And after we've teased it for so many meetings, we're excited to have Brandon Marshall present about the tracking for the OSAC that is being done on the preventive purpose. So lots to cover. Let's jump in. I almost want to. Should we stall a little bit or jump in? Let me go through my slides and hopefully. Oh,
Secretary
okay. Great.
Thank you, Secretary.
Thank you for joining us. Okay. As I mentioned, this is part 1 of a multi-part conversation around sustainability. We know that we're going to need to continue this discussion because even though, this committee has been earnest and has been diligent in allocating resources to non-settlement funds for FY 23, 24, and 25, the money will not last forever. As we'll go over in a few minutes, the amount of funding per year will start to diminish. And we want to make sure that we are gathering the committee's input and guidance around strategies that we should employ to try to sustain these investments. We've spoken about this in pieces in multiple meetings in the past. But we want to make sure that we create space for a thoughtful conversation today. And again, we thank the Secretary for joining us because we will be continuing the conversation after today, and the Secretary will be considering the input that he receives and the staff receive and thinking about how we can sustain this work. So without further ado, here are the funds that have been allocated by this Overdose Settlement Advisory Committee for FY 23 through 25. As you will recall, when we made the FY 25 allocation recommendation, we knew that there was an expectation of additional settlement dollars coming, but we did not know exactly how much. And so we made some recommendations, if we have funds, consider investing in these areas. But our primary or core recommendations were with the 18.4 million that we knew we had. And so the numbers that you're seeing on the screen, FY 23, 24, and 25, are what we knew we had. There are additional funds for FY 25, guidance that we provided to the Secretary and the UHHS still stand. And should there be any more, we can revisit how those funds are spent. Committee members, if there's any questions, stop me along the way for any points of clarification. And then once I get through these, just a handful of slides, I have some discussion questions to prompt the conversation. Okay. On this slide, you can see the longevity of the years. Remember, the settlement is spent down over 18 years. You can see funds that were already allocated in the state in FY 22. This committee has made allocation recommendations that were accepted by the Secretary for 23, 24, and 25. And in the red box, which I realize is a little bit small print and my head's in the way, you can see the expected dollars available for 26, FY 26 through 39. I say expected because there may be additional settlement dollars that are awarded or dispersed to the state. So this is what we can plan on. And again, trend line down. It's a little more. Okay. I wonder if maybe I'm fully looking at this. A little closer. A little closer.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay. As you also know, committee members, we have focused our spending in different categories of support. And we've had conversation around how much we want to spend in prevention versus harm reduction versus treatment, etc. And we've also funded new initiatives like the Overdose Prevention Center is a very well-recognized one and has been in the media a lot of late. So we have balanced ourselves between ongoing, like tried and true, tested and evidence-based programming versus stimulating and supporting new and innovative opportunities, just as we have also balanced ourselves across the continuum of strategies to address the opiate epidemic. And so as we think about sustainability, these are some prompting questions. I'd like to hear from committee members to hear about how you think we ought to be allocating funds across the categories, those pillars of support in future years, as well as your thoughts on allocation between new initiatives and sustaining existing work. And I'll say for Senator Miller, because he's not at the table today, as a part of sustaining, we've also talked about how some of these expenses should be folded into state agency budgets. We've often been a champion for that and reminded us of that. That's also something to keep in mind as you're thinking about sustainability. And with that, let me pause and ask if there's any questions for clarification before we start talking about some of these discussions. Ripple?
What about sustainability in the state budget?
Sustainability period of the investments from the OSAC from the secretary, from state government, but the investments of settlement dollars. Mechanisms for sustainability include going through state budgets, include potentially other creative ways to grow, to sustain and or grow the dollars, but you know. Mhm. Okay. Important clarification question. And so now for the discussion questions. Number one, should we be applying the same pillars? Prevention, harm reduction, treatment, et cetera. Should we be applying the same pillars going forward as we think about how to allocate settlement dollars for the remaining years of this agreement?
I think that we have to do an assessment, exactly see which one of those pillars has worked. And in that particular area, we can make the investments going forward. Because most of the time we have things that we had select, but probably not yielding the result that we're looking for. And I think that we had to concentrate going forward, which one of them have really worked, and then we can, put the chunk of resources to that.
So using our evaluation data as it starts to come in, the target resources.
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you. So I think Ernesto beat me to it. I would say, no, all good. I do think personally that we probably need allocations for all those pillars, right? And I sort of see the OSAC funding as really evaluating, what works within those pillars. And then to understand over time what amount of funding really needs to be allocated for what works. But just one sort of, I think, note in general about sustainability. I think it's great for us to be talking about this. I think this is super important for organizations to consider. It's also a little bit too, I think, on the organization's part. And I say this as someone that's gotten a fair amount of grant funding in my background. It's also, I think, it needs to be an expectation of organizations that some of this is time limited and may not be sustainable for the long term. But I think once we understand as a committee, like what works, we can approach the state agencies, whether it be UHHS, Department of Health, state legislature, and sort of find the funding for what works. But I think the data really needs to be key, and we need to look at this through a lens of evidence and data and understanding what works. It's not necessarily, maybe some of it is shifting funding between the different pillars, but it's more, we need all the pillars, which is why they're pillars. And it's more about understanding what's effective, what are the effective programs that we want to sustain over time within those pillars.
Yeah, and I just want to highlight, you make a good point about our communication strategy and setting expectations with funded agencies. Now, it's not the OSAC directly that's funding agencies, but we can provide guidance to OHHS on how to communicate to agencies, but not everything that we provide funding for upfront will be able to be sustained for the duration of the settlement agreements. Not everything that we provide funding for should be sustained. It's appropriate to test. I mean, we've had this conversation a lot, especially at the beginning of our work together. It's appropriate to test ideas and to test the model and to fund them. They may or may not work, or they may or may not work to the degree that we desire. And so the willingness to say, okay, we're going to stop that and invest elsewhere is an important authority to give ourselves. Which is not to say we don't like a group or we don't like the work, but we're going to invest in what works. Do you see opportunities for the state to see other revenue sources to supplement the settlement dollars? Are there things that we should be considering or asking the HHS to consider that have not already, been relayed to the Secretary's office? I just think, can we talk for my
And everybody just really does need to speak up no matter what.
So I just think that we always should go to the agency, the state agency, but also the recipient of these funds should always be looking for an outside sources for grants and for outside funding, federal funding is obviously the primary source. And so I do think that to the extent the resources that the agency that can really focus on availability of federal funds. That's gonna be key. You know, whether I'm not sure if your question is going to, am I aware of other litigation out there, other possible settlements out there?
No
I
pressure on
wasn't
you.
sure. I'm not, but even if I were, I couldn't tell you. You know what I'd have to say. I mean, those things are always possibilities, but I do think that you know, being really smart about leveraging federal funds is a way to go. And I also think, and this is kind of a general observation, I've seen this in other contexts. And this is a statewide issue, it's not in real estate issue, but particularly in scenarios where we have a big amount of money coming into the state. We put them in these funds that bear like millions, like just nothing. And it's ridiculous. And particularly when you know, you don't even have to try hard to get 5 to 6% interest. And I think that a lot of the funds that our state puts these money in get like a couple of percent. And that's that. I mean, you know better than anybody here. And you wanna build an endowment. And that's how we should look at this, is it an endowment where we collect interest, and hopefully, if we're good about it, these funds can be sustained. So I do think there is an opportunity, and we should think carefully about how to maximize the way these funds are invested long term.
Thank you for introducing that concept, because that is one that I'm particularly interested in and would like to hear more from the committee. Let me take the first part of what you said first, and then come back to the second part. The first part of what you said leads me to think, might it be a recommendation from the OSAT that, to the OHHS, that, while it's not their primary job to find funding for organizations to continue their work, but that they can be helpful in identifying, and maybe through, for instance, the Preventers of OSRI website, identifying other funding streams that can support existing work, especially existing work that has been evaluated to be effective. But that is a service potentially that deals with that, the partners can help to provide peer funded organizations, funded entities for resources to sustain their work.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's critical. You know, we did this actually at the Attorney General's office when we coordinated the statewide funding for body one county. We actually had a person in the office work and coordinate with all of the law enforcement agencies in the state to figure out what would be the best way to apply for federal grant money to maximize it. So instead of having 39 separate cities and towns, police departments apply for, you know, federal funds and probably not get the maximum amount of funds that the state would get. We had a coordinated sort of strategic application, and we got the maximum. I mean, probably the same thing applies here. We had a more coordinated approach even with organizations, we can likely maximize federal.
So awareness, coordination, not as a roadblock or as the sire necessarily of what independent organizations can do, but as a facilitator.
Yeah, I totally agree. A few other ideas or comments I wanted to put forward. I was speaking with someone in Vermont this morning. There's a bill in their legislature to increase the tax on opioid manufacturers for each prescription. Does Brittany have that already, right? But their bill is actually increase that amount. So I thought that was interesting as a possible way to increase sustainable funding, so there could be bills put forward in the legislature to enact those kind of laws, to provide more funding, sustainable funding sources. And then, of course, the program can be supported by the general revenue of the state budget. That's another model that I think community members hopefully will advocate for. The task force to be involved in that process as well. And I believe the MED program in the prison is one example. Is that right, Dr. Burke? Is something that is as part of the general state budget at this point. So I think there are examples perhaps we could draw on and push for too. So those are two comments, I guess.
And then, thank you, Dr. Marshall. And I want to pick up on the second part of what I think is mentioned, which is what if we invest settlement dollars to grow, not to see what we have, but grow. Right? I think for those of us who have any money in the stock market right now, we're trying to see numbers go up. I don't know what happened the last 2 years, right? So the settlement language does not preclude us from doing that. And there are other states that have considered that strategy. What does the committee think? There are different ways to do that. I mean, there's different ways to, if the state were to give the authority, there's different entities that could do that. There's foundations, there's private investment firms, there's different mechanisms to do that. But what do you think about investing settlement dollars that would then create a base from which funds could be applied and geared towards beyond FY39 to fund appropriate activities?
Before anybody answers, just because I'm monitoring the chat, there's having a little bit of trouble hearing. If you can put the mic at a little bit out, I can even, did you bring up? I'm only kidding. If you could just put, and maybe try to stay still, because it seems like it gets muffled. Thank you. If you move your head, move the mic with your head.
The mic wasn't on. Problem solved.
How many experts does it take?
Hey, doctor. I'll just provide my 2 cents. I remember Dr. Marshall saying, really one of our first meetings about how I think Alaska was investing. And I was just I've been thinking over the months about investing $192 million and, what's the interest on that? So I would be a huge proponent. That being said, I think we have to balance it right against the acute need of addressing fatal overdoses. But perhaps if we move more in prevention part of things, hopefully in the coming years, maybe we have some folks and financial folks crunch the numbers, see what would be appropriate enough to invest, so that we could have really sustainable, long-term, maybe more focus on prevention. So obviously that's kind of where we want to get to. We want fatal overdoses decrease. But I would be very supportive of that. I think we just want to be careful because sometimes, in the real world, right, this money has, sometimes used for other things outside of original intended purposes. So just being careful about, what this money is used for, and having.
I would agree, and yes, invest as long term, but maybe think about setting like a percentage of what we're trying to do in terms of investment. In terms of sustainability, when we started this whole process, we thought, and I think it's important to remind us, this money is not replacement money in the state budget. And as we go forward year to year, we want to make sure we don't forget. Replacement money. And then Dr. Chan talked about it earlier, but I'm not sure we have enough data yet to really understand what's working and what's not.
I think the AG's office is correct. And we all come up, get on the same to the reason. That's the motivation of the stock market. Risk stock market. We're dealing with all this money, that's the money that actually needs to be used. What I fear in government, a lot of times will hold the money because it's not quite due, because you can make another extra percent or 2% when the money is actually needed in an area that should be used. That's my only reservation about that kind of money, the money that actually needs to be used for what it was intended. So that's my 2 cents on it. And I would have a tough time kind of money in the stock market, money that people that use.
there others? We'll get the mic to this side of the room, so I don't want to miss any comments.
I was gonna say, I am remembering Ernesto at one of the very beginning meetings saying, like, when people are dying now, and this money is meant to help people dying now, and I think no money should be sitting in a 0 to 1 interest account, like, that's just poor financial strategy, and so for encumbered funds that are not yet spent, absolutely, someone should be making sure that there are smart financial decisions being made with that money. But I also think have a little bit of a reservation that this funding, while sustainability was a goal, I think of it as more the emergency infusion to identify and support emergency intervention. And if things are really working to the point where they need sustainability, then I think we need to look to our colleagues to find money to fund it. That would be my two cents. One of the things that
I just want to say, I know how risky is the market, and today we enjoy the good movement to this rate, but I get it's well that there is that kind of portfolio that we want to choose, and it would be a good idea if we can have somebody who is a financial advisor to come here and give us, some kind of, presentation, and then we decide exactly what kind of portfolio we can choose to do that.
Yeah, I appreciate how, committed you all are, as a committee to being good steward of these funds. This is the job. Thank you for doing the job. But, I appreciate how, thoughtful you are about being good steward, because it is our job to make sure that we're spending the money appropriately, and, doing the most good that we can with the dollars that we have, but also thinking about what's the most strategic way to apply the resources available to us, and whether we focus on just prevention, or we focus on encumbered funds that haven't been spent, or what, and just considering what the options are, and bringing in some expertise, which absolutely, I would agree, it makes sense, not with an uninformed decision.
Okay, yeah. And maybe you do the best one to answer this question, but are we getting funding like year over year is being used, or do we have the lump sum now, and what is the payment schedule?
So it's a little bit of both, Julie. So a lot of depends on the settlement. Some of the settlements were large upfront payments, others are over 18 years. I think there is a chart page 3. It sort of, I think, encapsulates the general trend of the payments that are expected. So it does go down significantly. And look, I think that I hear Representative Hall, I hear Mr. I think we can do both things, right? I don't think these things are mutually exclusive. Certainly, the last couple of years, I would say still now, there is an emergency that we need to respond to, and we need to make sure we have substantial upfront infusion of funds to make a difference. And we've seen this a lot, right, when we are investing in things like a harm reduction center or expanding capacity building, right, both of organizations and capital for different organizations so that we have the services to deliver. So I definitely think that those are all correct, that we need to have enough funds available upfront to do all that capacity building. I also think that we've seen ourselves that there is almost like a limit to the amount of funds that can be effectively allocated. You guys are encumbered. Thank you. You can never tell me these words enough, and I will never get them. There's sort of a limit on the number of funds that we successfully encumber. I don't know why that is, but it just seems to be, right? There just seems to be kind of a limit to how much money we can get out effectively and responsibly in a given year. So we are, I think, going to have some portion of funds that are available to, I think, put aside for future years
years where we know there are gonna be much leaner years, and we know that they're leaner years, right? So, but I think what it's doing is there's funds that then are being put aside, that they're just sitting there and not growing. I mean, I am, far from being any type of a financial advisor, but I do think there are, you know, entities out there, foundations, whether it's the Island Foundation, United Way, whatever. But that's what they do, right? That's all they do, is they build, endowments and funds for these types of purposes. And if there's a way we can be creative and kind of leverage those types of resources in the state, it's, I think, something that to think about, that is worth thinking about, you know, and certainly for some portion of the fund.
So, final question, because I'll do my job is to do exactly all the content for this meeting, and knowing that this is not the only time that we'll be having this conversation. So this is very good discussion. Final question. Are there any other criteria that you want to use today, and I'll be opportunity again, that we should be considering when making decisions about how to invest in the pillar? Criteria like, is it an evidence-based or evidence-informed program or activity? Criteria like, is it working? What does the evaluation tell us? What other criteria would you like to raise up today that we should be considering before making investments in this?
I think potentially one-time investments too. This may not be as big of a deal like right now, the timeline, but I think if we have less money, like one-time investment, which builds up infrastructure that's then sustainable. Sort of thinking about buildings or things like that. And then I'm going to throw out one other idea, just because I haven't heard it mentioned in this setting yet. But it kind of goes to what Adi was mentioning in terms of federal funding, right? We can move the pieces around locally and kind of, you know, reallocate, which I think we should advocate for. But I think part of the game too is getting as much federal funding as we can. One thing we do with an academic research hat on is we do seed grants to people who write more major grants. And so in the academic world, what this looks like is I'm part of an HIV center, and we give out grants for $40,000. And the $40,000 fund PCs or MDs to then write $3 to $4 million grants. And so one other thought would be to help start to train the next generation of substance use people, both programmatic as well as academic, because there's a lot of money in academic research. That Dr. Marshall here, super successful, Dr. Burke. So there's a lot of money that is out there for things like the NIH. And so one thought may be, and the Rhode Island Foundation also does this, where they give out I think it's $20,000 to $40,000 to more academic focused people, including clinicians though, and that is used as seed money for multi-million dollar grants as well. And so when you think about the NIH and SAMHSA and things like that, and these grants range from, these are the grants that we want, right? From SAMHSA, NIH, these are grants anywhere ranging from a couple $1 million to upwards of $10 million from the state. So I think going after some of the federal grants, it's important we start to train people and offer some incentives. And I think in general, anywhere from $10,000 to $40,000 is a relatively good investment if you can downstream get some of these $1 million grants. I'm sure Dr. Marshall or Burke, I know we can connect on this as well. Sure. Yeah, I think that makes sense. So I like that idea. The other framework that I love going back to is that bigger that we have around the continuum of care framework. I present that all the time. It shows how the pillars are supposed to work together. So I don't want us to lose that, and get into a battle of sort of pitting programs and pillars against each other. It's really a holistic approach. And so we can shift funding across pillar as the epidemic evolves. But that's one of my favorite frameworks, honestly, areas to really highlight that these programs do work together on the prevention, treatment, harm reduction, and recovery side to move us forward. So that was the other principle of framework I wanted to keep coming back to. Yeah.
Thank you. And if I can just build, Dr. Brett, if you want to if I can just build on your point about Sam and umbrella, it's my own. I mean, you suggested investing in infrastructure, and I would say investing also in relationships of having communities, of having programmatic folks working with researchers and building relationships and building like the muscle around partnering could also help prepare us for some of those larger grants that would be for both research and implementation, turning research into action. You know, so that's another version of what we're discussing around to benefit us, to change that.
Just some clarification. Are you suggesting that this committee see about the program so that we can give more, use the money that we have here?
Yeah, so some of these large, centers, academic centers, put aside a small amount of money to fund people for grant applications that are, the main purpose is to get future grants. I believe also the Rhode Island Foundation does some professional development stuff, so for people that have never written a grant, to offer some professional development and training to train people just how to get grants in general. And then in the doctoral world, there are grants, both by Rhode Island Foundation, a number of different centers, academic centers of Brown and Whitesand, where investigators get some of these smaller grants, 10 to 40,000, to apply for some of the $3, $5+ million grants. And those are federal, so it wouldn't affect the state budget.
Only problem is a bunch of smart people in the back. How to do this, we have this. Following, moving forward. No disrespect, that the moving world is done it better. We're designed to give this money back for people who actually need it, have trouble branching some of this money on somewhere else instead of actually need people here that will need it the most for their needs, for what we're designed to do. Before I go everyone else to take a dime out of here, give somewhere else that was a dime to go in the back. I have something, and I respect it, don't get me wrong. Absolutely. I understand it. But being on the committee, I have some time. Moving people, not to where that.
I think it's an excellent point, though. I think that there are probably ways to do both, and that I completely agree that feeding community-based organizations, grassroots organizations, people who are on the ground doing the work, could be the way to apply that strategy, and that could be how the seed money potentially was delivered, had to have a strong community-based organization at the, funding those organizations. And I think as a state, but also in like the field of academia, to your point, I think we have this opportunity of infusing more funding to support community-based organizations who are actually doing the work. While I have the mic, very quickly, you had asked about other principles to guide future decisions. I do think going back to our very first meeting, the Johns Hopkins principles, using evidence, saving lives, focusing on racial equity, is the other very core component in youth prevention, like a reminder of things to guide.
Not to, thank you for reminding us not to stray from those commitments we made at the outset. Yeah. Okay, excellent. Marty, do you want to say a closing statement about what you are the secretary?
I just wanted to share that the secretary was appreciative of this conversation. He, as I noted before, he needed to leave. But he wanted to say that he really appreciates the discussion of sustainability and encourages the group to continue on.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. To be revisited. Okay. Now we need to move to electing new members to fill the open seats on this committee. A couple of words preamble. We are blessed to have a slew of great nominations on both the community expert side and the subject matter expert side. We're thankful, we recognize that the folks who nominated themselves are our colleagues, neighbors, friends, these are folks we work with. So we appreciate everyone who was willing to nominate themselves and to offer to provide the time and effort and energy to serve on this committee. So first of all, I know many are in the room, but not all, but a sincere thank you to everyone who submitted a nomination. for your willingness to serve. Two of the people who submitted nominations are the people who hold the seats currently, so Ernesto and Brandon, thank you both as well. Thank you for your service to date for the last 2 years. Thank you for your desire to continue to serve. Because you are nominees, we're gonna ask you to recuse yourselves from the voting and the discussion. I mean, we know your vote's great, so you don't have to know that you're great, you don't have to remind us how great, but we'll talk about you. We just ask that you not talk to you. Also, yes. You can stay in the room. You don't have to leave the room. In this case, thank you for asking.
You just move away from the table.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's, if you wanna, that's, thank you, Brandon, and for, reminding you of what I have to do, but if you wanna sit in the gallery
Yeah,
for now.
No,
So that we can't even see your handsome face. So we have a number of nominations. We'll take them in turn. We'll start just arbitrarily. We'll start with the community experts, and then we'll do the subject matter expert. We have 1 seat to fill in each. Now, let me remind the committee of what we decided at our last meeting in terms of process. We shared, as we said we would, all the nominations of the committee. So you've seen every nomination. And let me not forget to change the slide. We released and sent multiple reminders. We encouraged lots of nominations, and we got lots of nominations. The new members will begin at the May meeting. The criteria that we asked about in the application are listed here. So we provide the contact, we provide their age, the gender, we prescribe their certificate, et cetera. And so everyone provided us information. On the next slide, also ask for people to share with us if they identified with any of the categories. We asked for them to provide a bio and to respond to a short essay. And we prompted them to tell us about how they would be committed to racial equity, which is identified as a priority by the OSAP. We asked them to identify if they were a person with lived experience, which was a priority from the OSAP. And so the committee members have the complete responses from all of the nominees. Now, at our last meeting, we agreed that the process we wanted to follow was to see all the nominations, so that you wanted me as the chair to vote with the staff and to try to provide some guidance. Now, keep in mind, I'm a non-voting member of this committee. Y'all will be voting, committee members, on these nominees. I'm not voting. I'm just presenting the information to you, hopefully in a way that makes it a little bit easier to understand and follow and track. So I just did the homework of saying, what are the criteria that we laid out, and who checkmark, who is responding to those criteria? Based on, this is the subject matter expert. So here's the community expert. These are all the names that were, nominations that were submitted. There are 2 people who applied to be both a subject matter expert and a community expert. They're starred on this slide. Let me explain the order. Numbers 1, 2, the numbers do not matter. There's no significance to the numbers. The only thing that matters is the first 4 names are the people whose attributes most aligned to the criteria that the OSAP prioritized. Meaning lived experience. Describe their and experience of racial equity. Person of color. Those criteria that we asked about, the first 4 are those that most align. 4 is an arbitrary number. I tried to pick a number that was not 1, not 15, just elevated the 4 that most align on both the community expert and subject matter expert side. After the first 4 names, they're just listed alphabetically, the first name. So again, no meaning to the numbers, no meaning to the order, except that the first 4 are the most aligned, and then everyone else is just alphabetical. Okay. What I'm going to ask, and while I want to acknowledge we have a number of folks on the slate here in the room, we're not asking them to make a pick. We're not asking them to respond to individual questions, but we are glad that they can be here to hear the discussion. I'm asking the committee members to, guide us, to have some discussion about the slate, have some discussion. You can use the first four as a starting point, not meant to be the only things that you consider. Use the first four as a starting point to see how that aligns, how your read of the nominations aligns with what's presented. We do have a way to vote, so we're gonna have discussion first. So we do actually have a QR code that we can scan and vote so that we can quickly tabulate the vote. If we see that the most votes is perfect, we can move forward. So we will do that once we've had an opportunity for some discussion and answering any questions. Is there anyone who needs, on the committee, who needs to recuse themselves for any other reason from the discussion of this meeting? Yes, first. I want to acknowledge one of the people on this list is an employee of an organization on whose board of directors I serve, Paul Silva. So I will not be speaking for or against Paul Silva's candidacy. I will be
Just to confirm, I know people can be nominated, but everyone on the list wants to be part and express interest and desire to serve.
These are self-nominated.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. Let me throw a pitch out there. How do the first four names, how do they resonate with you in terms of looking at their applications, their attributes, and how they align with the criteria that you do? But does anyone see anything that doesn't align? We're not completely limited to the first one, just starting there, so work with me on. Does anyone see anything on the first four that doesn't align with the criteria that we have listed up as priorities? Yes. I do. I really don't know about our next one. I mean.
No, I just want to, acknowledge as unitary that I was really incredibly, impressed, by the volume and quality of applications. I mean, I did sort of kid myself that we can only pick one person because I do think it's an embarrassment of riches. So I just wanted to take a moment to just acknowledge all the applicants and really thank you for putting yourself out there and putting so much thought and effort and time into it. And personally, I know many of you have come to meeting after meeting, and I know we are sitting around this table, but I view all of you as partners, thought partners, and inspirations to our decisions. So whether the person who's chosen ends up sitting around the table or not, I really hope that we can continue to benefit from your collective wisdom and thoughtfulness as we move forward. And also, this is a year time period. So there's always next time. So with that, I will now answer your question, which is, yes, I think that the folks you highlighted certainly fit the criteria. And for me, I think it's very important to have folks around the table with lived experience. That is either their own experience with substance use disorder or experience with like immediate family members who have struggled. Because to me, I think the big nut that we always have to crack is how do we get folks the help that they need, effectively get them out of the cycle and get them the help that they need to succeed and to be folks with rich experience in the community and probably our best solutions.
If I, Dr. Kim, before you speak, I can just share for clarity, the criteria that I use to identify those that most align with our priority were direct lived experience, what I call in my shorthand second degree lived experience, meaning direct lived experience, I have a substance use disorder, a substance use disorder versus second degree, a loved one, a family member, a son, etc. Person of color, or someone who brings racial or ethnic diversity to the committee, someone who brings language diversity, someone who brings geographic diversity, someone who is a veteran, someone who's a person with a disability, someone who represents the LGBTQ plus population. These were areas that we wanted to further diversify the committee. And then notes about if they bring a perspective that's not already represented on the committee, some other, unique aspects of their background. So those were the criteria. Again, lifted up from our own discussion and application process that I used to kind of match, folks. And so, Dr. Kim.
I would just also agree with a tough decision that says, I think that all these folks are really excellent and need to do probably a great job on the committee. So, but I do agree to highlight the points about lived experience, especially to talk about achieving health equity, folks with the background of the populations that were most reached to the college. I do think that you've done the due diligence, but also this is an incredibly tough decision, in my opinion.
I would agree. I think looking through the applications, an amazing amount of talent, experiences, passion for what we're doing. One of the individuals in looking through the applications that jumped out at me is Carlene, in terms of meeting a lot of those criteria that I mentioned before. So as we're looking through, it's one of those things that jumped out. So that much to add, it's like a comically difficult decision for both groups. I wonder if there is a way to try to think about how to leverage the insight of both groups. Knowing that only one would be on the committee, but not that the other 50 shouldn't have a voice in guidance like people do that.
Thank you. I agree, Mrs. Tough, and I am not an expert in the subject matter, but I am kind of experienced in terms of bodies and membership and things like that. So one of the things that I was thinking about was, the value of institutional knowledge, and someone that's been on the committee already, and thinking specifically of Ernesto and Dr. Marshall. And, I think given the breadth of experience and the number of quality applications, I landed on that we as a committee would probably be better served transitioning new members instead of reappointing members who have been on in the past, despite their very strong background and their contribution. I think that we can all benefit from new perspectives, and I think given the breadth of experience and the time spent by all of these applicants, I would like to see an individual be given a platform here as a member of the committee. So that's one aspect, but take nothing away from any of the applicants, and certainly Ernesto and Dr. Marshall's contributions. I just think that these are partners that we can continue to have while welcoming new members into these two roles, and hopefully maybe see how we can expand going forward. You certainly do know where to find them. Other comments? Okay.
So I would agree with that. I think, again, this is a good problem. I think we'll all like to have. I'm very impressed with reading all the material about choices here. But I do think there is value of, I think everyone here is committed to what this has, and whether you're on the committee or you're contributing in other ways, I think that's important. But seeing new faces and new ideas coming to the committee, I think there's a lot of value to that as well. So it is difficult. There's two names here that we need to choose, one from each category. And all 16, if you look at this, could easily serve that role. It could be
Unless someone wants to make a pitch for a particular name on the list, I would offer up, could we do a first round of voting to see where we land and see how much spread there is in the voting, and then we can continue discussing? Okay, so I believe the members have a QR code in the packet, which will take you to a Google form that just lists all of them, all of the applicants. I would invite you at this time to take one vote, take it when it's.
Yeah, my scanning on my phone, how we working, how I use
You want to use my phone? Does everybody have their phone? Or the method?
No. It is anonymous.
Yes, you don't have to enter any personal information. Once you scan it, it takes you directly to the form. Anyone else not have a signal?
Just voting on community members.
Yes.
Can I vote more than, like, can my phone be there between that and then? I can vote on it. Yeah, that would help me better.
Forcing us to choose on both categories.
Just choose for community for now, so I was making it.
Yeah.
Pick something for subject matter. I can figure it out. I can figure out the second time around. Yeah, so it's saying, Director Sarah is saying that it's forcing you to choose both a community expert and a subject matter expert. Pick anyone for subject matter right now, so we can clear the responses. And address that second, so it doesn't matter, pick anything for subject matter. Pick your choice for community for now, so we can see how it's doing. Julie, can you bring in? Yeah, thank you.
I know.
He had trouble, now he's got my phone. Okay, good.
So are we doing both community and?
Pick anyone for subject matter right now, but this is who you actually want for community right now. Has everyone had the opportunity to vote?
Yes, I believe it, I give my vote,
Andy, did you vote?
Is there anybody else who did not vote?
Did everyone's, form confirm submission? Right, did you, yeah.
and then. Confirmation. You vote more than that.
There's 10 people, but only
Form didn't go through. There we go, I got it. Oh, okay.
Oh, there you go.
All right, so just based on this initial round of voting, there's 4, this is the most rated individual for Rico Lincoln. Let me invite the group to look at Nico's application, because right now he's the top vote getter. You don't have to fill out the.
Let me share with you a bit about Nico. Has direct lived experience, is a person of color, is a licensed chemical dependent professional working toward his certified care recovery specialist credential. Currently works with Amos House, has direct experience, but also working with people with substance use disorder or challenges. Has been, I'm trying to remember some of the things that he highlighted in his application. Do you have the book with you? Thank you. We're gonna have to put the binder in the head. Grew up, born and raised in South Providence, lifelong Rhode Islander. Successful reentry into community after spending some time in prison. I mentioned work with Amos House, transitional program coordinator. Yes, thank you. Has served as a reentry case manager as well. I mentioned some of the trainings and certificates. I've also done work with behavioral health and homelessness prevention. Working toward his master's degree now. Again, with the top, I've worked with Kodak and Thrive, so certainly probably worked with a lot of folks in this room, and involved in this work. I've been in this work for a number of years. You know, again, aligns with a lot of the criteria that this committee elevated as priority. Is there anyone who feels that, I don't want to say Nico's not qualified, we've already established everyone's qualified. Unfortunately, we can't take all, but anyone who feels that we shouldn't go with the person who got the most votes in the first round of voting, that we should consider a different applicant.
I just have one comment about the process. I don't really know many of these people. I think ideally we would bring maybe the top few in to chat, maybe in person, and hear from them about what they would bring to the committee. It just makes, personally, I've never met some of these people, and going through the interview process, normally we do in person and hear from them. I'm wondering if that's a possibility, even if we set up a meeting outside, that members who wanted to attend could have a chance to meet maybe the top few people, and then give them a chance to talk to the committee for like a couple minutes about what they would bring or why they want to be on the committee. I know we have it in essay form, but I don't think that we can place in person component of that.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Sam. We did have people take significant, you can tell from what they submitted, you know, they put time and thought into the essays, and we're gonna need to use that to guide our decision making. We need to have them in place to know. We just have the time for the committee to vote and have them oriented and have them in place for our main meeting. There's not a lot of flexibility in the timing. And unless we're going to interview every applicant, I would recommend that we be consistent with using what they submitted. When that is fun.
I think if you want to reach a decision, then I suggest you go for another round of vote. The question is it a plurality or a majority? That's the problem.
So I'm recommending that we use a very unexciting mechanism, which is most votes. Most votes. And so Nico had 4, after Nico was Ernesto with 3 in this first round of voting, and after that, I think it was all 1, people, a number of individuals who had 1 vote. So that's.
What's the number? How many are on the table? What's the majority?
There's 10 around the table.
So 6 are making.
Not necessarily majority, but most votes is what I'm proposing. So someone could have 4 votes, but all the rest could be spread as 1, you know, individuals who have 1 vote.
So it's not the majority.
It's not the majority. I'm proposing,
Okay.
if you disagree, then we go with whoever, with
whichever candidate has the most votes.
I think it has to be in the
Does it have to in the language?
By a majority vote of the.
So we can. I think we should vote again. Look, I think there's a lot of merit to what Dr. Chan said. I don't have a strong feeling about the proceeding based on paper or inviting the top three, to come and present, like maybe three vote getters, whatever, top two vote getters, come and present. So we'll send it. Obviously, we all know and love our mentor very much, so, I do think though, if we did that, and I'm not the open government meetings expert, but I think if we did that, the way to do it would be to invite top two or three to come and present to all of us at the same time in the open forum. And so that would potentially require either an extra meeting or delaying putting them on, like taking some time in the next meeting and then shooting them.
Okay, I'm gonna push back. You guys can overrule me, but I'm gonna push back. I'm gonna caution us against letting perfect become the enemy of good. We have many qualified applicants. Like, I just wanna we're not gonna fail in this. No matter what, we're gonna end up with a great person on the committee. Both as a community expert and a subject matter expert. There's no way to fail. So I don't wanna make perfect the enemy of good. I do wanna keep the process moving along, because the interview would require scheduling another meeting, it's going to be an open meeting, but no people come and present, and we knew we had to vote. This was never gonna be enjoyable, because we respect and want to hear and learn from all of these people. But I would encourage us to make a decision today.
I'm gonna push back. I feel much more comfortable having somebody come in. I know maybe one or two of these folks. The rest of them I don't know. Has anyone done like verification on these folks? Have people looked at it, or is it just on paper?
It's primarily on paper.
I mean, even though it's hard on.
When you say verification, what would you want verified?
Things like education, background, where they work, that kind of thing. Like you would do in any employment process.
But this isn't employment.
No, I understand, but if it's only on paper, I mean,
Paul?
But when it comes to making decisions, I'm coming to your defense here. If you made a decision, you know everybody is capable of it. You understand that. Try not to look at it like you're insulting someone. That, I like this candidate, you better know. You have to make a decision on it. Why are you decision to go forward and pushing back? We have it in front of us. We're not gonna lose. We're not gonna lose on who we choose today. So I stand with the decision of this year.
How do others feel? Thank you.
I agree that, we shouldn't be looking for here we have two people that have 7, votes between out of 10. So I would suggest we revote, with those two applicants and then come up with the majority.
Andy?
I was just, voted, but I did not want to finish that. Can you hear me? I rushed in and voted, but I have a clarifying question. I know one of the applicants, serve on the board, one of the applicants is not position.
Serving on a board together, or is there any kind of like the person's not an employee of the organization?
No.
You can vote on someone who serve on a board.
Okay. And I don't have any.
I'm sorry, I can't take public comment.
I'm in favor of us moving forward with the best information as possible. These are open meetings, we allow people that don't be meetings, so they have, honestly, continue to provide input from the, open meeting format, I think that's something we've been very accommodating for.
Would the committee be comfortable, as Chief Moynihan suggested, voting again, and focusing simply on those two top vote getters? And we're opposed to doing it. And at this point, I would stop saying if you're not like vehemently opposed, but you're willing to go along with it, but you can indicate, but okay. Can you hear the responses based on the form? Can I ask folks to vote again? The two top vote getters were Nico Lincoln and Ernesto Figueroa. If I can invite the committee, after that, it was all one. But those are 4 and 3. If I can invite the committee to vote again, focus on, Nico and Ernesto. Well, they're clear, you should be able to vote now. You're just doing one, yep. Yeah, pick anyone for the subject matter expert, so it lets you submit the form. We'll handle that first. 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, so. Thank you, everybody. We had 10 votes for committee members. We have, and let me actually, this is not a popularity contest. I just want to say it one more time. All these folks are qualified. These are folks that we work with already. Like, we know some of these people. We serve on a board with them. Our agencies work together. So we're going to extend grace to ourselves and everyone else. And it's awkward, but this is our job, is to vote in new members. It's really a job. It's to vote in new members. So I, again, thank everyone who applied, who submitted a nomination, who took the effort and had the willingness to serve. Thank everyone. And we hope we will continue to hear from you throughout the process. In this second round, we have 7 votes for Nico and 3 for Ernesto. Given that, the committee, are you comfortable moving forward with the recommendation of the selection of Nico Lincoln for the community expert position? And is there anyone who would like to dissent or say anything about another candidate? Because certainly we have a bunch of candidates, and everyone was on the slate. Everyone on the first round of voting, every name was on the slate. But this is the name that rose to the top in terms of getting not just the most votes, but the majority of the votes from this committee. So, any strong endorsement or disapproval of moving forward with Nico Lincoln as the community expert to fill the spot on the committee? Director Cole made a motion that we move forward with Nico as the community expert to fill the open position. Is there a second? Andy, a second. All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. I realize it's awkward, but necessary. Now, for those who don't know, you need to stand up so that at least people can know your face, your face. We look forward to following up with you and welcoming you and orienting you to the committee. Thank you for your willingness, and thank you to all of the community expert nominees. Okay, we're not done yet. Oh,
Can we just acknowledge Ernesto?
Oh, we will. Oh, we will. Very much value Ernesto, who was enthusiastic from jump with this committee, and has been tried and true and consistent throughout his tenure, his term, and so we thank you, Ernesto. We're gonna thank you. We're gonna sum up this segment of the agenda in a little bit with some more, but I wanted to turn to the subject matter expert. Again, thanks, guiding principles. There's no losing. There's no losing in this. We have another great slate of subject matter experts. The committee has received all of the nominations. Again, we have the first 4 names are the names that most aligned with the same set of criteria, so no changing criteria. After number 4, and the numbers don't matter other than just to count the first 4 names. After number 4, they're just in alphabetical order, no significance. Again, we have a list with the riches of some phenomenal subject matter experts here. And the difficulty of thinking. I will point out on his behalf, in particular, just to remove the discomfort, if there is any, Brandon Marshall's not on the top 4 list, even though he served in the seat. Dr. Marshall's not on the list because as you read his application, he said in the application, listen, I'll step back. There's someone else who wants to serve and is, equally qualified. I've had an opportunity, and frankly, we all know where to find him. He's not going to get away. He's still doing work, related work. He said, take me out, go with someone else. So that is why, to clear the air, our friend and colleague, Brandon Marshall's not on the top 4. Okay. Would anyone like to ask any clarifying questions or offer any insight into any of the candidates for subject matter expert? Adi?
I have a question.
Yes, question.
So, again, in the interest of ensuring that we have diverse perspectives on this committee, any of the top 4 that are listed right now, do they represent or are they involved with organizations that are already represented on this committee?
Like, are we double dipping from lifespan around kind of thing?
Like lifespan, whether any other organization. I just want to make sure we have, we talked a lot about, I think there are just different types of diversity as well, like both organizational, employment background and geographic diversity, in addition to, subject matter expertise. And I just want to make sure we're not leaning too heavily into one type of organization, modality, et cetera.
I will say that we have a number of folks who are epidemiologists, who do research, who are affiliated with the School of Public Health at Brown. Of course, we only have one school. No, that's not true. We have more than one School of Public Health in the state. I didn't go to Brown. It's not that I'm bad. It's my school. But we only have one medical school in the state, certainly. So it's hard to not have double dipping and to some degree if they do research and are epidemiologists. But in terms of other
applicants, but with people who are already on.
Well, yes, it's definitely affiliated with them. So it's hard not to.
Almost all the businesses are affiliated.
Right.
Okay.
So that's like, that we are double dipping. We would be if we chose it. We do have several people who are physicians. We have also folks who are doctor PhD among the applicants. Thank you for the clarifying. The first 4 names, 3 are people of color and bring racial ethnic diversity, 2 bring language diversity. All 4 have, an academic appointment and are involved in research and epidemiology and addiction medicine. One is the director of addiction medicine at Rhode Island Hospital. Can I answer any questions? That's all.
So are we, great question. So would that disqualify, is that what we're trying to do?
No, we're not trying to disqualify. I would encourage you to think about, it would have applied to community as well as subject matter, to address it, especially, we don't want to invite someone to serve on the committee who's going to have a lot of conflict, that would prevent them from being a full participant on the committee. That's a consideration. It's not so much a consideration on the subject matter expert side as it might have been on the community side. I would encourage you to think about, having folks on the committee who would extend the network of the OSAT. So, you asked about double dipping institutionally, but I would also encourage us to be conscientious about not double dipping in terms of you don't want to replicate another advisory body on this committee, because it's the same people having input, and as much as we can extend our network, I think that's a good thing. To audiences and, populations that we might not otherwise hear from in other settings. Yep. With folks, if there's not, discussion that we need to have on any individual candidates, the folks like to do a first round of voting and see where we land on these subject matter experts. Can you post one, please? Okay, so let me invite you to vote. Again, because you have to vote in each category, pick anybody for community expert. Focus your attention on choosing who you want for the subject matter expert.
One minor thing is that, Dr. Fix's name is spelled on here. I look at, with their spot
Oh.
on here.
Oh, okay. Her name is F.I.S. And I didn't ask if I did it explicitly. Is there any, I apologize, is there anyone who needs to recuse themselves other than those who already have, for the rather voting on subject matter expert? All right, who's playing by Chicago rules? 13, yeah, people are going to, I think they need to start. Okay, so everyone hold on, we're gonna clear the results. We're playing by, I'm just gonna say what I would move, that may not work well. Let's pick somewhere, we're playing by, Okay, there were 3 before you opened it again, so they might have forgotten if they voted again. Which shall I say go?
Start again.
Hang on, let me see. Okay, please vote. Thank you. Is there one vote still outstanding? There we go. Okay. All votes are in this first round, the highest number went to Linda Hurley. You can turn that on too.
We have 3 for Linda Hurley, and then the next highest was G Park at 2 votes. And John Cassoni at 2 votes as well. So we're at 3-2-2. Hurley, Park, and Cassoni. Anyone want to raise up feelings one way or another on a candidate or another candidate? Dennis?
Again, we're blessed with a lot of really strong people. Hello? We're blessed with a lot of strong people. Excellent application. Can I speak what the person that I voted for? Is that fair? Okay, number 2. Alex, only because, she's worked in the community a lot. She's really around a lot of different organizations. She sees a lot of different, perspectives and her work doing the research and everything. So, again, I don't have any direct affiliation, but just working with her so much and seeing her around when she got involved in racial equity. Of course, if you have her application, you should be there. But I think that she'd be a good building.
So Alexandra McAdoo is a Black woman epidemiologist, researcher. I will acknowledge if Brandon is not going to be the judge, you know, if that's where we end up, the expertise that Dr. Marshall brought to the committee was significant around the research methodology, the rigor, having the academic background and the applied research and academic background. So maybe something for the committee to consider. We will lose some of that, not all of that, looking at the room pages, but we would lose some of that rigor because we're doing that work, full time. And so considering having someone who brings that expertise to the committee would be of value. Anyone else want to say any words about any of the candidates? Dr. Paul?
And yes, it is a tough decision to make. I'm only speaking on behalf of, that I voted for. I guess it's only because of my capacity, resources, and many years. I've actually for and understand the commitment and the expertise that we found out on the Hill. Also, the qualifications. Very well reviewed, not confident. That's why I continue.
Thank you, Paul. I'm sorry, so it's not.
I withdraw my name.
You broke it.
I withdraw.
Okay. Mr. Cassoni? Cassoni is withdrawing his name. Okay, I'd like to recommend that we do another round of voting. You've heard of additional comment from committee members. Can we do a second round and see where we land, please? Can you clear the responses again? I'm going to try to move us through swiftly. Dr. Chan?
Dr. Park, who I did not know, got 2 votes. Does anyone know Dr. Park? Can you speak to Dr. Park's qualifications? I know that you're very valid point because they do have they have females, but I don't know them. But I also know they got 2 votes.
Yeah, Dr. Park has worked with Dr. Marshall, is person of color, language diversity, epidemiologist researchers. Those are things that I noted aligned against our criteria. Works with Brown, appointment of Brown, does active research and community collaboration. Dr. Clark and Dr. Masmadou, if I'm pronouncing the last name correctly, similar in terms of research and community-based work. Mhm.
I feel like I know a lot of the names, all of them are wonderful, which I realize is not to add, but I will say, who the people who have been commented upon, I know quite well, all are great. Dr. McAdoo worked very closely in Dr. Marshall's lab, I think has a lot of that epidemiology expertise, has been working with community organizations. It's a wonderful community, and I think I agree with the endorsement. Dr. Park is a harm reductionist researcher, PhD, which is very interesting. She does a lot of really good work. I believe she's based in Baltimore, but has an appointment here and comes up frequently. And then obviously Linda Hurley is a leader in the field, and especially has that method on respectful decision.
Okay, you've heard the comments from your colleagues, your peers around the table. I'm gonna invite folks to vote again. I would encourage you to think about, for the sake of, we're all doing our part to do this good decision. You have the full slate in front of you, but think about what you heard about, both how the first round has already ended up and what you heard about, lifting up some of the names, the comments on some of the names on the slate as you consider your second vote. So, sorry. Hold, please. And Mr. Sassoni, again, remove himself from consideration. Yeah, I just had to do so. Thank you, everyone. Vote away.
There's a name that's from that list.
Sassoni? It's at the bottom. It is there. So you may need to go back out and come back in again.
Or just, refresh. Yeah, we did keep it fresh.
No, continue. Okay, we only have two names that have been offered, Alexandria Masmadou and Linda Hurley. And I think we have 13 votes here. No, only between those two names. One more time, folks. I'm gonna ask you one more time. Wait till we figure out. Wait till we figure out.
Technology is wonderful, isn't it?
It does depend here. I don't know why there was. Stop voting. Three, two, one. Wait. It's like a delay. Or is that mine or the phone? Said there was 10, but there were 13 names on the first sheet. Okay. Go.
Okay. We have 10 responses. We don't get a list of 13. We have 10 responses. We have 8 votes for Alexandria McAdoo, and we have 2 votes for Linda Hurley. Is there anyone who would not be comfortable on the committee moving forward with Dr. McAdoo? Dr. McAdoo. Did I make up the title? She's Dr. Right? Dr. McAdoo. Is there some? There's a motion to accept Dr. McAdoo as the subject matter expert. Is there a second? Second. All in favor of Dr. Alexandria McAdoo as the subject matter expert, those are open, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions beyond? We've already recognized. I think Dr. McAdoo may be online on the Zoom, and so if he can hear me, I congratulate her, look forward to meeting her and working with her.
I was just able to join. Sorry, I had a conflict right before this, but seems like fabulous timing.
Glad to join. Thank you, Rick Cole. Listen, I want to thank the committee because it's not easy. Yes, embarrassment of riches, not easy. We are winners. That's the takeaway. We are winners because we have great nominations. We have great people filling the seats, and we have great people whom we will continue to rely on for guidance and advice and information and to participate in this process. So, you know, we could only fill one seat in each, and we hope that everyone will still continue to be a participant in this process. We really value and rely on your expertise and input. To the nominees, the candidates, thank you, thank you, thank you, because you made our jobs hard. Appropriately so. And I do want to say, because now we don't have Ernesto, we don't have Brandon, that we hope you still come and visit with us. We hope that we can still call on you. We thank you sincerely. This was a big effort to get off the ground, and you two were here from jump and have been involved in many ways. And so thank you for your service to the community. Okay, and now, in fitting form, I've now shortchanged Dr. Marshall for his presentation. But we're gonna get to that very shortly. We're gonna move through some other updates quickly, and I thank the committee for moving through this very important work. Ready for it? Yep. Okay, Kathy, we're ready.
I can actually introduce Dr. Marshall's team too, because I'm gonna go really, really fast. I'm Kathy Schultz, the Director of the Governor's Overdose Task Force. I'm loud, so, all right, I forget. All right, can everybody hear me? I'm sure you can. I am Kathy Schultz, the Director of the Governor's Overdose Task Force. I'm just gonna go very, very quickly, and I'm gonna turn it over to Dr. Marshall's team. I don't know who's presenting. Okay, so I just want to give a quick update. Jonathan's gonna put that in the chat, if you don't mind. In our March, Governor's Overdose Task Force was a focus on our rescue work group. And I want to acknowledge that part of that focus was actually about the advocacy that they did for the naloxone, which we ended up getting through the TEPA settlements. So that is one thing that was really exciting. We also talked about how they use that work group to really be an advisory for emerging issues and many other things that have to do with harm reduction / rescue. And we finalized that with a wound care, the mobile wound care project that is actually funded by this committee or by the opioid settlement fund. So it was great. There was a lot of great feedback. For and just for April, April is Second Chances Month, and I didn't know that because I'm always trying to find themes, so I Google what month is. And so we're actually gonna have a presentation by the Center for Health and Justice Transformation. Heather Gatos is gonna join us, and also Justice Assistance, who is gonna join us and go over their CORS program, which is Comprehensive Opportunities, Resources, Employment Services. And that is also funded through the Rhode Island Foundation opportunity. And so that is also opioid settlement. So any of the presentations can be found. You can listen to the recording, or you can see the slide decks. And finally, I just want to remind everybody that in May, the Governor's Task Force will have a community convening meeting. It will be where we gain the input for the recommendations from the task force to this body. So that's all I have, and I'm going to turn it over to my friend, Dr. Marshall.
Thanks,
See, we couldn't get enough of them.
Exactly. I remember going there. Thank you. Thanks so much.
I'll be super quick. This is bittersweet for me because this will now be my last meeting, so I just wanted to thank you all. I've learned so much from you. And I'm not going anywhere. So I'll still be around and very happy to provide input on all of this work and look forward to working with you through the task force as well. I'll continue to be an advisor. So if you go to the next slide, what I'm going to do very quickly is just talk about the work we've been doing around a publicly accessible page on Prevent Overdose RI explaining the opioid settlement process. So I want to thank the Prevent Overdose RI team at Brown, led by Max Trigger, who's in the room, who's the project director for this project, and the staff and colleagues and friends at UHHS who have been involved in this process too. So if you go to the next slide, we've talked extensively in this group about the need, I think, for more public education around what the settlement process is, and increasing transparency and accessibility around this information and how people can apply for this funding. So Prevent Overdose RI is a great venue to do that because it is the state's primary online resource for tackling the overdose crisis and finding resources, information, and data. So that's what we've been building towards with our team. We're about to launch this page. This will be the link that will be accessible very shortly. That's not quite public yet. If you go there, there'll be a password, but we do intend to release this publicly in early April. And I do want to highlight, we go through a comprehensive web development process that includes feedback from stakeholders. This presentation is part of that process. And we adhere to best practice as well around health communication and ensuring accessibility on these web pages, for example, with color blindness, and also ensuring all of the text is no more than a 6th grade reading level. So these are the goals of this page that will be released in early April. We want to educate the public about what this process is, where they can find more information, how they can apply for funding, and then show through visualizations how our funds and our recommendations are actually going out into the community. So that's the goal. And what I'll do now, go to the next slide, Carrie, is just walk you through a few snapshots to give you an idea, for I'd love to have a little bit of time for feedback. So when the page is public, the first thing you'll see here is what is the settlement, right? These are funds available to support the state's effort to tackle the overdose crisis through prevention, treatment, recovery, and harm reduction. So it explains what this process is, and it doesn't come out of a vacuum, right? We're also working with and informed by the state's roadmap and action plan to address overdose. So that's highlighted here as well. Go to the next slide. Then the next part of this website will explain what the settlement process is and how it works. It explains that 80% of the funds are controlled by the state through this body, 20% of the funds are distributed by population to municipalities, cities, and towns. We had to work very hard to distill this to a very short amount of text that's accessible to all Rhode Islanders and the public. So if people are interested in more information, that's going to be available through the link here, which will take users to the UHHS website, which is not going anywhere and has all of our slide decks, all of the public information. So that will continue to be the place to find all of the gory details. This is really meant to be a high-level snapshot for anyone interested in this process. And we can link out to more information as cities and towns publish that as well in this section. So go to the next slide. Then we've created a visual, which is a modification to what we've seen in slide decks, just to explain to the public about the many steps involved in making recommendations as a committee and how that flows through the various state agencies, the governor's office, and the budgeting process that ends at a procurement process and bidding opportunities that's run by the Department of Administration and the purchasing office. And we can put on the website links, for example, to these resources that were distributed today around what that procurement process looks like. So the next page. And then we're working on visualizations to give people an understanding of where are we spending the money, right? So this is the first thing we've done is create a high-level overview of funding allocations. We decided to do this by year to give people an idea of how the trends are changing over time, and then by pillar, right? So this will give a breakdown of funding by year and by pillar. It's interactive, so there's a mouse over component where we can provide more information and continue to build this out. These proportions, I should say, are just placeholders. We'll obviously confirm these with information from UHHS and the Department of Administration once this goes public. Go to the next slide. So then below that high level overview, we decided rather than to have a universe of all funded programs, for now to provide highlights or snapshots of funded programs by pillar. So I love feedback on this approach, but that's what you started with. So this is the harm reduction pillar. And we highlight here 4 programs that are funded through the opioid settlement. So members of the public understand a little bit about where the money is going. Over time, we could build this out to be more comprehensive, but we thought that this would be a good first start to start disseminate, be transparent about where this funding is going. Next slide here. So that's what we're calling phase 1. That's going to go live in early April once we polish some of these visualizations. But then I'd love to hear from you now or later, how we can make this better, right? What information should go on this page to increase transparency and accessibility? Some ideas we have are working with Tamara and UHHS to include information on evaluation and impact of these funds. So that's going to start becoming available and we can use prevent overdose to distribute that information. More detailed vignettes of specific programs beyond just snapshots and additional visualizations about programs that are being funded. This is being done in other states like New York and North Carolina, I think, have more detailed databases of funded programs. So that's something we could consider to add to this page over time. We're also working to potentially have a database of open bids so people can more easily access current funding opportunities. So we're exploring the feasibility of that. I think it's feasible. We just have to speak a little bit more with DOA and UHHS. We're hoping to add that so we have a list of funded programs and active bids as well on the site. And other ideas too. So I'd love feedback. I don't know how much time we have, Carrie.
Let's take
Yeah, Dennis, what do you think?
Because of our emphasis on racial equity, I want there's someplace on this page somewhere where we can highlight the funding that's been allocated that will better support the demographic.
That's a great feedback, Dennis. We do mention that in the preamble, but I think you're right. We can draw that out much more aggressively and even maybe add that to the visualizations looking at Max. So thanks for that feedback. We'll incorporate that. Yeah.
Very good. I'll
Yeah,
just
Dr. Chen.
touch on a couple things that you said. So totally agree with Dennis. I also think, I may have mentioned this before, but some very top level sort of metrics, like fatal overdoses, just potentially overdoses in general. And then the other thing too is I've had trouble finding some of the grant funding solicitations. So I think being very clear, I know that was mentioned, I think last meeting by someone here as well, just having more access and transparency about where the funding announcements are actually located.
Yeah.
And or links, just links to.
Yeah, we have on each funding opportunity on the purchasing website does have a unique URL. So we think we can do it. We just need a process, Dr. Chen, for making sure that that information is up to date and we're not directing people to expire funding opportunities. And then there's others from the Rhode Island Foundation as well that we have to monitor. But we think we can get there and have that available on the site. Yeah.
I think this is amazing and everything that you do is quality and this is no different. I think one of the big problems that this addresses is the transparency of where funding is allocated in a beautiful way. I do think another step, and the vignettes try to capture this, is transparency in how the funds are used. And I think as much as possible, even it doesn't have to be the budget sheet of the community organization, but if there's a news story that covers it, so that when we say, naloxone training to first responders, what does that mean? Is that every first responder in the state? Is it only, I think painting as much of a picture of transparency and execution, because I think that is always a major challenge here. And I feel very like that is opaque to me. When we say harm reduction ban, like what are they doing? Who is it? Who's going out? Things like that.
Can I add, I think this is great. I think this is great. I'm excited to have this, open to the public and launch. I like the way that you put it out so far. I agree with all the comments that have been made thus far. And I understand why starting with a few kind of signature or representative programs or projects under each pillar is where you start, but I would encourage, full steam ahead to get to the point where we're listing all of the funded programs and activities with the amount of funding that come from the OSAT. And then thinking about this as a resource for folks who want to learn more and for folks outside of Rhode Island, who want to learn from what Rhode Island is doing. But I think that will be a lot of our traffic as well, to have contact info for the organizations that have been funded, so people can follow up directly with that vendor agency for more information. But I like where you're headed. And I would underscore also, and it may be in the preamble, early slide, the guiding principle that we agreed to and of that,
Yeah.
with the emphasis on racial.
That's great. Yeah,
Thank you.
that's helpful feedback. Thank you. Also, I know there's public comment period, right?
We do, there is a public comment period, but before, I just want to say, Dr. Chan, ask and you shall receive. You want to say, put something writing about purchasing resources. Thank you so much. Dr.
Yeah.
Thank you, and thanks to our team too, who do all of the work to put all the data together about what things are being funded on. Thanks to our staff. When I was able to go to talk to purchasing and say, OSAC wants this, folks want it, the community wants it, ask and you shall receive. So in the packet is a two-pager, resources and guidance for the state of Rhode Island solicitation and bid process. I think it would be that difficult, but all of the information on how to use the purchasing website is here. And we got more ability to put stuff online, I think, with this. And we are gonna put this up on the website and folks are gonna be able to read it and see it and use it and find the procurements that you need. I wanna also tell you very specifically right now that there is a request for information out of BHDDH, the Department of Behavioral Healthcare, Developmental Disabilities and Hospitals. That is called Substance Use Disorder Innovations, and a request for information is not a particular request for funding, but is your ability to say, hey, when you create your next requests for funding, like all that FY25 dollars that you allocated and that we are gonna be able to fund, you should think about this. So this is our way to get community engagement, so anybody can respond, anybody on the committee, outside of the committee, anybody can respond. If you go onto the purchasing website and you search substance use, it pops up. It is due on April 4th. We'll also send it out so that you have it. But all you need to do is search substance use disorder, or even just substance use, and it popped up. We also are gonna put the number in the chat. Kathy's putting the number in the chat now. So urge you to do that. It'd be important to hear your perspectives.
Thank you, Marty. And I just want to acknowledge, it was, as we discussed at our last meeting, it was exceptionally harder than frankly it should have been and take more time than it should have taken to be able to put together that two-page purchasing cheat sheet, again, like a cheat sheet. But thank you to the staff, thank you, Marty, for championing it, working with DOA. We hope that it is useful. We are open to feedback on it. Please refer to it and share it widely. We will post it on the Prevent Overdose RI site, but please share it with your colleagues and peers. We want to make this easier to access information about the solicitations. And with that, public comment. I will invite any public comment through the Zoom or in the room. I'll ask folks to introduce yourselves if you'd like to make a comment and then limit your remarks to a minute. Please to try to hear from as many people as possible. Yes, ma'am. Hi, let me bring the mic to you. Oh, thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Linda Marzilli, and I want to congratulate Nico and everyone who applied to this. I just want to say, I want to go back 1 minute. In the application, I knew that we were advised to do an essay, talk about ourselves, our experience, and that we wouldn't be asked to make public comments. We wouldn't be asked to share and speak here. So I feel like this was a valid vote. We know a lot about community members. We trust the work we've all been doing. So I personally feel very safe and confident that anyone on that list would have been more than come in and do what we do. So Nico, congratulations, and Ernesto and everyone else that has done work here. The other thing is this, now I'm not a financial advisor, but I have a question. Is there anything against doing small term investments? Say, right now I know a CD is a 5% return, it's guaranteed, FDIC insured, blah, blah, blah. Again, I'm not a financial investor, but are we able to do something like that with the money?
Yeah.
And one more question, we don't have that sheet, the purchasing sheet in our packet.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Linda, thank you for your comments about the process. Thank you for the question about the shorter term investments, which we will bring back and consider, which I don't know the answer either, but, as a state, not a state employee, but valid question, good question, and, we'll make sure that we get that sheet out. Through the interested persons list, which is 1,000+ people. Thank you for letting us know.
Hi, Catherine Theosley from Integrated Healthcare Solutions. I just have a question for you, Brandon, about one step further in the transparency process. So on that diagram, all the money comes out in the end and it ends up, say, at Rhode Island Foundation, the Rhode Island Department of Health. The people that work at those organizations, are they the ones solely sitting around the room making the decision? And what happens when what happened today, and someone says, gee, I don't know that organization? What do? Do they end up coming back to the task force to try to get feedback? Or is it just done and it ends in their hands?
I can't address, I for that party or yeah, I'm not.
No,
So I don't know. Yeah.
The procurement process is that, only state employee team, reads the applications. Only the state employees can do that, can vote on the applications. Sometimes we have subject matter experts to come in where it's a really complex, thing. But we look in the creation of the procurement group, for the broadest, aware folks. And if they don't know an organization, they, somebody probably does and is able to talk to that, or, we also ask, that's what the procurement process is. It's the applicant's role to tell us about the organization so that the groups know about them.
And I'm gonna get to you this 1 second. I don't have that 2-page in my packet either. Can, someone who has it, and can we give it to Catherine? Because Catherine was one of the people who asked for the purchasing cheat sheet. I just want to make sure.
We will
she
also
leaves with it.
send it out. When you signed in, I think we asked for your email addresses.
Yeah.
So we will send it to everybody who's here. We will post it online. We will make it available.
Thank you.
And somebody can have mine.
Can I talk in there? I am.
Hi, my name is Kayla Serrano, not Kayla Serrano, but I go by Kayla Serrano. So I just had a few different things. So earlier when you were speaking about like ways that funders can ask or try to build sustainability, I was thinking about the idea of the Medicaid reimbursement dollars. There's a lot of policy movement behind it, but when I want to kind of push what Dennis said, sorry, I don't know your name. Dr. Bird, so as I've gotten deeper, I'm from California, and I'm pretty sure you guys read my bio. But as we've gotten deeper into this conversation, like the different pillars and the transparency that's happening to Dr. Matthews' point, I think it would be relevant to find out a process and to back you again, like I said, Dr. Berg, the process of the success and challenges, and then the expectations to the agencies that receive the dollars to give very detailed information backing. Because a lot of people are going for a BIPOC grant, but when they see BIPOC, it hits so many different categories that they think they can put one person to kind of fill that. So like just watching over and just making sure that the investments are actually recovery oriented, in the aspect of who they're actually, the population they're serving. And then the last one is, for the data, the 4% of the funds that's required to go towards the data, I would say to speak with consultants who are knowledgeable, such as like the wellness warriors and stuff like that, bringing them to the table to not only to like solicit and cultivate, but to steward the relationships further past what we're already doing. That's how you kind of bring that stream of income back in and make it more sustainable. So the actual question that I have is there a way to put a lot of this information with the pillars on the website that are open for community feedback? So that when we have this minute at the end of the meeting of 2.5, 3 hours, that we can kind of have more time to kind of prepare ourselves for that conversation. That's it. I know it was a lot.
No, thank you. Thank you. Good point. Yeah. And we do want to continue, that website is a living site to continue to add content and be able to respond to the suggestions like you made.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think you guys have a great foundation thus far, and even the website, like, maneuver and do it, but like a lot of people have said, the bidding process is very hard to like really follow if you're not within that. And so, the agencies that are getting it, look, all this money going out, but it's because they get that people, so where's the innovation? Where's the bringing different voices to the table? Where's that happening there? It's things people doing the things.
Thank you. And I realize we're 6 minutes over already, so I appreciate I was giving you much of that. No, don't, not, that's not on mute.
Hi, this is Amy Valentine on Bright Cares. I just want to first compliment the selection of Miko Lincoln. I work with Miko in the work that we do. Couldn't have picked a better candidate to join this committee. But I wanted to mention with regards to the website, and you mentioned vignettes. Before I joined Bright Cares, we had a prototype of an overdose prevention site and a video walkthrough was done. And based on a lot of feedback and stuff in our archives, that really went a long way to reducing the stigma that the larger community who isn't as innately involved in harm reduction, it went a big way to changing it. So I hope that when the new site is ready, that you'll consider having a video walkthrough. I think it'll help with that. Good idea. Thank you.
Thank you. I just had a question for the committee. I believe in June, correct me if I'm wrong, the numbers come out for 2023 on the amount of opiate deaths in Rhode Island. So will that be a barometer for the committee to know whether the allocation of your funding is working? I mean, there's no foolproof process here, obviously, on an allocation across so many different agencies. But will you look at those numbers closely and determine, make that one of your determinations to understand if the allocation of funding is actually working? Because if we see deaths, opiate deaths, staying the same or going up, would you have to question some of the allocations or regroup in some areas? So that's my question.
Yeah, and the short answer, yeah, that's the short answer. It's not the only indicator of success, right? But that's because we can't directly attribute it only to OSAC allocation. We have also, there's other money that's bringing it in and. But to your point, we do an update annually with the city on the data on overdose deaths. We will continue to do so. We will continue to look at that, plus as we get evaluation data coming in and other sources of data, but it's part of the compendium of data that helps us know, like, are we moving in the right direction? Absolutely. Yeah.
And the state also obviously looks at that data, the Overdose Data Council, within EOHHS looks at those data. It is one thing, as Carrie said, that we look at, but there are so many parts of that make up the, all of the reasons that, I don't know that the committee would be asked to sort of change all of our funding.
No, I understand.
So.
There's other factors involved, obviously.
I can help just add a little bit. EOHHS, our overdose data analytics lead is here, and she actually convenes and co-chairs what Marty mentioned, the Overdose Data Council. And so all of the state agencies come together and we really look very closely. The overall goal is to reduce fatal overdoses by 30% by 2030. We have a we have a midterm measure, which is 12% by 2025. So yes, that is what we're looking at, but as Marty said, there are so many factors to it. We want to look at each of the pillars. That's what we were talking about, and kind of a snapshot of what Prevent Overdose RI will make sure that the public sees and that you have access to that information, because that's the key to this.
And Gianna, did I miss any comments on the, that is the only room? Thank you all for the extra time. Thank you. This is a important meeting. In some ways tough, but in also other ways great, because we have great people working with us. So thank you all. Have a wonderful afternoon.
I lost my passport.
My back.
Yes, yours I want.
Yeah, yes.
How are you doing? Amazing. Great.
Yeah. There's a ton of. Yeah.
Great job. Oh, yeah.